Thanks for joining me for this edition of the Author's Corner, brought to you by KNEO 91.7 FM The Word. I'm Roberta Foster, and today I welcome Heather Norman Smith to Author's Corner. She's written the novel A Simple Kindness in Flatsboro, which is published by Kregel Publications, and she'll tell you more about how to find the book at the end of the program. Let me give you a little bit about Heather. She is the author of inspirational fiction set in her home state of North Carolina. She won Contemporary Novel of the Year in the 2023 Golden Scroll Awards for her book Songs for a Sunday, and was a finalist in the 2022 Selah Awards for her book New Wine Transportation Company. Heather is a member of Word Weavers International, American Christian Fiction Writers, and Advanced Writers and Speakers Association. Heather, thank you so much for being with us on Author's Corner.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I am so happy to be here.
Okay, so you open your newest release, A Simple Kindness in Flatsboro, with a very special dedication. Tell us about that.
Oh, yes. So this book is the first one that I have dedicated to my children, and I dedicated it to all four of them collectively. But each book kind of has its own feel, and it was the first one of the six that I've written that just spoke to me as needing to be dedicated to them. And the book is about kindness. That's a major theme, and it's something that's so important for me to pass on to my children. So this book was for them. And I also, in the dedication, it says to Elizabeth, Sarah, Daniel, and Benjamin, those are my kids, that I hope that they will be ever mindful of their value to the Creator, because that's a big theme in this story as well.
Wonderful. Well, that's a real special opportunity to recognize your children, and I'm sure they're blessed by that as well. So something that I picked up on the cover of your book, A Simple Kindness in Flatsboro, a Southern novel. Now, I have never heard that particular phrase, so why don't you describe that to us?
Sure. Well, I think a Southern novel, it really does have a lot to do with the setting. Of course, like you've already mentioned, all my books are set in my home state of North Carolina. But the setting really becomes a character of its own. Okay. I think it's written in a way that makes people feel like they're there, like they want to be there. And a Southern novel really is about community, largely. It's about the people who come together in a place to make it home to the characters. And in some way to the readers. I want it to feel very homey to them while they're reading it, and that's a different kind of experience, I think.
Okay. So, let's get into what the story is all about. You've got two main characters, Andy Clark and Della Rose Miller. So why don't you introduce to us each one of those and what brings them together in your book?
Sure. Yes, well, this story is a little bit unique in that it has, like you mentioned, two point of view characters, a male and a female, but the book is not a romance. The story is about friendship.
Okay.
So, just to set that right off the bat, some people have found that refreshing. It's a little bit unique. But these are two people who were friends in their childhood for a brief time, and then are unexpectedly reunited as adults when they are both in very different places in life. And so, it explores the concept of can a man and a woman rekindle a childhood friendship as adults. And so Andy is someone who was born with a facial anomaly. He has a mass on his face that covers, half his face. And then Della Rose is a former beauty queen. And so there's a juxtaposition there between their lives and between their physical appearances, and how, what the world might see as an unlikely friendship, and how what binds them is really their hearts, and eventually you'll see their kindness.
Well, one of the comments from those that pre-read your book says that this book tells a powerful tale of what it means to be a friend. And so I think today friend is used way too liberally or openly.
Sure.
So as you're writing the book, what kind of details and attitudes are you relating that actually cause a true friendship to become?
Well, I think at first, these characters are not sure if they can be friends again, because it was a certain kind of friendship that really, they had not experienced since they were children. And, that's different. Children make friends very easily. Mm-hmm. And it's you just have to have a common interest and, we're best friends.
Yeah, okay.
But as adults, it's a little bit more complicated. And so I think that friendship and the story between adults really emerged from a sense of sacrifice. It was, what are we willing to do to help this other person? And that was kind of an indicator of how strong their friendship was. In the case of Andy and Della Rose, is what they, and particularly Andy, what he does for Della Rose, the lengths he goes to help her.
Okay. Well, you also mentioned that Andy and Della Rose are in very different places with their faith. So talk about where they are and why the faith element is so important to the writing of the book and for their friendship to develop.
Sure. Well, in Christian fiction, me personally, I think it's very important to have a strong faith element.
Yes.
There are varying levels and different opinions on what constitutes Christian fiction, and that's okay. For me, in all my stories, I want there to be a strong faith arc. I think usually I have a character who has a more profound faith journey than another. In this story, Andy is already a believer. So he has a strong faith, but he's like the rest of us. His faith is not perfect. And so he's got some growing and learning to do as well. Uh-huh. But Della Rose is, at the onset of the story, not to give too many spoilers, is not convinced.
Okay.
She's not a believer, and it's mainly because of some bad experiences that she's had that have turned her away from God. So of all the things that Andy wants to help her with, that's one thing that he's driven to do, is
Wonderful.
To help her develop her faith.
Wonderful. That sounds like such an interesting aspect to the story, and so look forward to learning more about that. So today I'm talking with Heather Norman Smith regarding her book, A Simple Kindness in Flatsboro, which is published by Kregel Publications, and you are listening to Author's Corner. I'm Roberta Foster. So I have this question in front of me, and it kind of always surprises me that the background of this question can actually be true. But so you're wondering where in the world I'm going. But the question is, what surprised you the most when you were writing A Simple Kindness in Flatsboro? And not being an author, that just kind of amazes me that the author can be surprised.
Sure. Well, I'm glad that I have one that just popped into my brain when you asked that question, because, sometimes you have stories more planned out than others. Every story is different, so sometimes I've got it plotted out pretty well, and there's not a lot of surprises. This one was kind of in the middle as far as just writing, as coming up with the story as I went and plotting it. But there was a moment in the book where suddenly my character needed a goldfish, and it was I didn't know that was going to happen. So it kind of a minor detail, but that actually did surprise me when all of a sudden it was very important that he have a goldfish, and that was not part of the story before. And so fortunately not something that was too hard to work in. But it was relevant. It did have purpose in the story.
Well, very good. Okay, so, A Simple Kindness in Flatsboro is a great title. Was there a particular time in your life, or maybe a one-time action that was a simple kindness in your life that may have come to mind as you were preparing for this book, or maybe even was the inspiration for it?
I really didn't have a specific event that I had in mind when I wrote it, but I did just like this idea of doing things in secret to bless other people. Kindness has just always been an important attribute to me. I can't say that I always live up to that ideal. I aspire to, but it really, it seems so simple. It seems maybe trite, but kindness is crucial for us as followers of Christ. Mm-hmm. And it's always something that, I want my children to be smart. I want them to be successful. I want them to be hardworking. But if I could think of one attribute, really, that I want to help cultivate in my children, it would be kindness. Mm. So there wasn't really one particular event that inspired me to make my main character a kind person and make it a theme of the story. But it is something I think that has always been in my mind as an ideal that we all should aspire to.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and as you mentioned, it's definitely a characteristic, if it's a fruit of the Spirit, for right. Christians to walk in kindness. But I imagine, as you said, we are all still growing in our faith, that there are times and people that it's not as easy to be kind toward. Did you have any of that type of combativeness in your story?
Oh, there's definitely a moment in their story or two. Andy is different, and so he, for the most part, is accepted in his community. But there are those who don't treat him well just because of his differences. Mm-hmm. And so he's had to learn. In the very first chapter, we see this scene where he's walking down the street, and these teenagers are passing him in a car, and they point and laugh.
Yeah.
And, that's the kind of thing that he does face from time to time. And there's a line in the book that says, that most people were nice, but some weren't, and Jesus died for both kinds of people, so he had to love them both too. Yeah. And so that's something that he faces. But also there's, every story has to have a good amount of conflict to create a story, right? And so we do have a character who is, I guess, what you would consider the villain. And so this is Della Rose's estranged husband, who definitely comes into the story to create conflict. Okay. And so there are some moments where Andy, has to defend himself in one scene physically, which was, out of characteristic for him, out of character for him. But later on, he's also confronted with the fact that he has to pray for this person. Mm-hmm. And that in of itself is an act of kindness.
Yeah, amen, amen. Well, today I'm talking with Heather Norman Smith about her book, A Simple Kindness in Flatsboro. Before you leave us, Heather, tell our listeners how they can find out more about this book and, of course, others that you've written.
Okay. Well, I would love for listeners to visit my website. That's heathernormansmith.com. They can find out about all my books there. And this book and others, it's available at all online retailers. So I would love for them to check it out.
And is there another book in the works?
So I've taken a little bit of a hiatus from writing.
Okay.
I think there will be. I think, I've always got something on the computer, always something that I can pull out. I have, a file with, 35,000 words in it that probably will be the next story that comes to life. But right now, it's been a different season for me. So we'll see. Okay. I hope so.
Okay. So one more time, the book today is A Simple Kindness in Flatsboro, and it's written by Heather Norman Smith. And we certainly appreciate Kregel Publications for giving us a copy of the book to talk about. Heather, it's been delightful talking with you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Oh, I enjoyed it so much. Thank you very much.
And to our listeners, if you missed any part of today's interview or would like to hear it again, you can now find it on your favorite podcast platform or go through kneo.org. Thank you for tuning in. This is Roberta Foster on the Author's Corner. Join me again next time.